been extremely fortunate to have been able to travel the world. I've traveled all across North and South America, everywhere from Canada to rural Guatemala. However, my favorite experience wasn't sitting on a beach sipping some Corona. My favorite trip was when I traveled across the pond to explore Europe with my family. While in Europe, I saw relics in England, massive mountains in Einstein's house in Switzerland, and in Italy we saw ancient monuments. Our first stop was London, England. After visiting my family in London, we walked around and exploring all the typical sites like Big Ben and the London Eye. After that, while walking down the street, a herd of tourists flew out of a building obstructing our path. Behind them was a man in a suit exclaiming things like, "Oh no, don't leave so soon," and stuff like that. He quickly changed his attention to us, basically begging us to let him give us a tour. We didn't have anything planned for that day, so we let this random stranger give us a tour of what turns out was the location of where they store all the Royal Crown relics. We saw records from our ancestors that dated all the way back to 900 AD. The best part about our tour was in the storage room where the relics were held. I got to sit on the Queen's throne and put on the Queen's crown from the Renaissance time. It was absolutely wild. The crazy thing is at the end of the tour, when we offered our tour guide money, he refused because the tour before us already paid. The next country we went to was Switzerland. While in Switzerland, we saw the Matterhorn and had a snowball fight on top of a mountain in the middle of July. The gigantic mountain was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It honestly didn't even seem real because it was so perfect. The mountain itself was very unique because it came to a perfect point. And it's crazy to think that the Swiss Alps are about 65 million years old, which is the same age as Tyrannosaurus Rex. The most interesting thing in Switzerland was at Einstein's house in Bern. I was able to see the original equations for the theory of relativity and the letter he sent to the president during World War II with the math behind the atomic bomb. The actual size of the home was quite small. If you didn't see the sign for it, you'd probably miss it. It was an honor to be in a place where so much advancement of the human race was discovered. Another cool thing in Switzerland was the giant swans. These birds reached up to 6 feet tall and looked exactly like regular swans. While swimming in the Rhine River, I actually had a family of giant swans sneak up behind me, and if it wasn't for some random Swiss guy yelling at me, I probably would have got attacked by those massive birds. Next, we traveled to Palermo, Sicily, Venice, and Rome. And all I can say is, Italy was absolutely breathtaking. In Palermo, we saw a statue of one of our relatives. Turns out, we used to be royalty. The beaches were incredible and had crystal clear water. At one spot, it was 40 feet deep, and you could literally see the bottom. I was lucky enough to actually capture a dogfish while in the water with my bare hands. Dogfish are a small species of shark about the size of one's hand. I distinctively remember the feel of the shark. It reminded me of prickly sandpaper. In Venice, we rode gondolas, had exquisite cuisine, and toured the city. It was very odd getting around. You basically had to get on a boat to get around the city because the city itself was actually sinking. St. Mark's Square was extremely beautiful, and birds were everywhere due to tourists feeding them. I remember having birds all over my arms while I was giving them bread. It was an odd but cool experience. Rome was hands down the best city in Italy. Everywhere were structures erected by humans that dated all the way back to 753 BC. The Colosseum was in fact a centerpiece for a big roundabout, which I thought was quite interesting. And the size of the Colosseum was quite astounding considering it was started in 72 AD. It was so big that during the Roman Empire they would actually fill it with water and have sea battles in it. The amount of history in Rome was outstanding. Even most of the roads there were laid by the Roman Empire and still used today. In conclusion, my family trip to Europe was the best trip I've ever taken. I got to experience sitting on a real throne and putting on a real crown in England. I saw some of the oldest mountain ranges in the world, giant swans, and Einstein's house in Switzerland. And I got to see the first-hand achievements of the Roman Empire. This was my favorite vacation by far. Thank you.